always thought the numbness that followed a family slight was my fault, something a good daughter could swallow with grace, something I could outwork or outgive into quiet. The night that lie snapped, I stood in my parents' entryway, holding cruise documents with everyone's names but mine, the paper slick under my thumb, like it knew it was betraying me. A strange clarity washed over me. My voice came out softer than I expected. You never asked me. You made sure I couldn't come. The silence that followed sounded like a confession. My mother, black and flawless as ever, in a pressed blouse and pearls, reached for my elbow with the same gentle authority she'd used on me since childhood. Honey, you're overreacting. Let's sit down and talk. Her tone was velvet. The message was granite. I set the documents on the entry table, placed my overnight bag back on my shoulder, and walked into evening air that felt brand new against my face. Behind me, my mother called my name. For the first time in 28 years, I didn't turn back. We are a Black family that knows how to look composed while a storm rages under the good china. That composure had always been my job. 30 minutes later, the quiet of my apartment sounded too honest to ignore. I dragged photo albums and shoeboxes of saved scraps from the back of my closet and built a half-moon of evidence around me on the carpet. The first album fell open to Christmas 2018. Harper, my older sister, hair-glossy smile, bright unwrapping a MacBook. Cody, my younger brother, grinning like a commercial posing with his first car used, but still worth thousands. And me holding a scarf, the 1999 price tag still attached like a joke that had been waiting 7 years to land. My smile looked genuine. It had been. I believed they were doing their best, that we couldn't afford more, that love was measured by patience and sacrifice. I flipped through vacation photos and found the pattern I'd refused to see. Yellowstone. Sorry, Rain, someone has to water the plants. Disney. Your internship is that week, remember weekend in Napa? You wouldn't enjoy it anyway, honey. I recognized the choreography I was always working when invitations were accidentally late or unavoidably scheduled. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We need to talk about this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. As if I had mistaken a door for a wall. I silenced the phone and opened the spreadsheet that has been my adult religion monthly budget. The numbers didn't care about gaslighting. I highlighted every transfer to my parents' account. $350 in April, Dad's insulin costs went up. $400 in June hospital copay. $800 in August, Mom's car needed a transmission. $2,800 last month, family emergency fund, my Lake Tahoe money, the vacation I canceled, because family needed me, because that is what a good Black daughter does in a family like ours, where we often meant you. A memory surfaced like a bruise returning to the skin after you thought the swelling was gone. Age 7. Harper at the piano with a vocal coach while I sat at the kitchen table coloring worksheets. Can I take piano too? I'd asked. We can't afford 2 kids in lessons, Mom had said. Maybe next year. Next year never came. But Cody got guitar lessons 6 months later because he's got rhythm, because boys need outlets. At 13, I cried at the kitchen table when I learned I couldn't go on the 8th grade science trip to the Oregon coast. $400 is too much right now, Dad said, patting my shoulder. 3 weeks later, he and Cody took a father-son camping trip that cost twice as much. In college, I worked 3 jobs while Harper's rent was paid and Cody's car insurance was covered. You're just so independent, Mom would say, admiration framed like absolution. We know you can handle it. It sounded like a compliment. It functioned like a sentence. My phone rang. Harper. Against my better judgment, I answered. Rain, this is ridiculous. You're making Mom cry. I found the cruise documents. It's not what you think. Her voice carried the smoothness of someone reading lines. We meant to invite you, but Mom said you'd understand. You always do. Those last words echoed until they turned iron. You always do. Not anymore, I said, and tapped end call. A text from Cody arrived next. This is BS Rain. We've always included you. Then you're being dramatic. Then like a bad punchline. Fine, how much do you want to let this go? The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Melissa, my best friend since college, brown skin locks under a knit cap holding takeout and a bottle of wine like an ambulance in a bag. You look like hell. Found out my family has been excluding me my whole life. I tried for breezy mist by a county. Nothing major. She put the food down and wrapped me in a hug that almost broke me. About damn time you noticed. She pulled back when I blinked. Rain, you've been the emergency contact, the babysitter, the interest-free loan. Last Christmas, you spent a month's salary on gifts and got socks. I wanted to argue. My throat refused to participate. Later, my dad's voicemail landed with the righteousness of someone who'd never needed to read himself. Your mother is upset. You're being ungrateful after all we've done. I pulled my knees to my chest and pressed my forehead to them, the rug's scratch a necessary sting. On Monday morning, my coworker James, also black, also eldest in his family, brought coffee to my desk and said quietly, "My folks played favorites too. It messes with your head. Makes you think you're the problem." That afternoon, I sat in Dr. Eleanor Warren's office and told the story out loud, watching how the words rearranged the furniture inside me. What you're describing is a pattern, she said, and it is not healthy. I always thought I was overreacting. You weren't. You saw what you were allowed to see. Now you have choices. Back home, surrounded by proof I could stack and staple, I made one. I texted Melissa, "I'm done being convenient." The phrase felt like a key in a lock I couldn't see until now. 4 days later, my phone buzzed for the 14th time. Uncle Jerry, Aunt Patricia, Cousin Megan, the extended family cavalry deployed to shame me back into marching formation. Family first, forgive and forget you're overreacting. The doorbell, then Dad's car idling at my curb, then a paper bag of my favorite childhood cookies with a card in Mom's handwriting. We need to talk. I miss you. It should have punctured me. Instead, it floated a prop in a play I'd stopped acting in. When Harper emailed mutual friends, "So worried about Rain, she's acting strange. Please check on her mental state." I forwarded it to Dr. Warren with the subject, Exhibit C. Her reply, "Flying monkeys." Classic tactic. I stared at the words until my eyes burned, and then I slept for 12 hours and woke up without the familiar dread in my chest. Somewhere between those hours, a new boundary formed, like bone knitting under skin. I had thought healing would be a sunrise. It turned out to be a decision repeated until it became daylight. By Thursday, the confrontation moved from my phone into my parking lot. Tara from reception texted, "Your brother is waiting by your car." I took the long way out, but there he was, Cody, jittery with indignation, leaning on my driver's side door like a gate. "You can't avoid me forever," he said, arms crossed, eyes bright with the kind of certainty only the cosseted carry like a birthright. "I'm not avoiding you," I said. "I'm refusing to see you." I kept my keys in my pocket, even though Cody's anger had always been loud, not dangerous. "You're tearing this family apart. Mom's barely sleeping. Dad's stressed. The kids keep asking where Aunt Rain is." I laughed before I could stop myself. "I'm tearing the family apart. I didn't plan a cruise without you." That was different. Different how we thought you thought what? That I'd never find out. That I'd keep wiring you money forever, while you used it to fund vacations I paid for and wasn't invited to. His face reddened. It wasn't like that. "When did you start planning the cruise 8 months ago?" The words landed like a metal door closing. I'd canceled my Lake Tahoe trip exactly 8 months ago. "Right," I said. 8 months. Something in his face flickered, maybe shame, maybe a light going off in a room he didn't know existed. "You always help. It's just what you do," he said. Like the weather, like a genetic fact. Clarity rose in me, calm as tidewater. "I was never your family," I said. "I was your safety net." That night, I called my cell provider and changed my number. "Are you experiencing harassment?" the rep asked. "Family," I said. "Say no more," she replied. In the morning, I drove to the bank and closed the joint account my parents had access to since college. The teller's eyebrows ticked up when she scrolled through the screen, 17 withdrawals in the last 12 months. "Would you like to open a new savings account?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and put my name on something nobody else would touch. When Harper's anniversary party invitation arrived, I checked unavailable and mailed it back. I set an auto reply on my old email address that said, "Thank you for your message. I am currently unavailable." With each boundary, a sliver of air returned to my lungs. That night, I bought a ticket to Barcelona for next month and stared at the confirmation screen until I believed it was real. I set a sealed jewelry-making kit, a replica of the one I'd begged for at 9 and never gotten, on my bookshelf. A year ago, I'd bought it for myself and kept it wrapped, a private memorial I couldn't name. Now it felt like a seed waiting in the dark. The calls kept coming in a last spasm of entitlement before reality set in. Harper sobbing her babysitter canceled. "Could I take the kids all day tomorrow like always? I'm unavailable." I said the words fitting my mouth like a new language I was fluent in. Cody, his car repair was $800. "Could I float him just this once? I'm unavailable," I said, and hung up. Finally, Mom, mortgage due, Dad's medical bills higher than expected, "Just this once, sweetie, like you've always done." I watched a video of La Sagrada Familia while she talked the cathedral, rising like bones knitted into music. "I'm unavailable," I said. Silence stretched like fabric. Then she asked, voice small, in a way I'd never heard, "What are we supposed to do without you?" The truth hid in her question, like a nail under carpet. They needed me more than I needed them. "Figure it out," I said, kind, but complete and pressed. End. A week later, work felt like a country with a different climate. I stopped flinching when my phone lit up. James peeked over our cubicle wall. "Family still blowing up your phone like clockwork," I said. "They thought I'd forgive it because I always do." He whistled. "That sounds familiar." That evening, Melissa collapsed onto my couch with 2 glasses of wine. "Harper called me," she said. "Spending a fortune on childcare since you vanished. How terrible that she has to pay for something the rest of the world pays for," I said, and was surprised by the absence of guilt. "Your mom's planning an emergency to lure you back." I laughed so hard I choked on Merlot. Emergency is her love language. On Sunday, Aunt Deb called from an unknown number. "Your mother says you're having a breakdown," she said, voice trembling. "She asked me to check on you." The manipulation was transparent enough to make me almost fond. "I'm fine, Aunt Deb. Better than I've been in years." "Then why aren't you returning calls?" "Because I'm unavailable." That week, my cousin Jamie called to report the family barbecue and play-by-play. "Your empty chair became this presence," she said. "Aunt Catherine asked why you weren't at the cruise." It got quiet. I pictured it, the sudden hush, when truth walks in wearing work shoes. "Mom left early with a migraine," Jamie added. "Uncle Pete said, if I'd done that to my baby, she'd never speak to me again." For the first time since forever, I let that image comfort me instead of hurt me. A different kind of elder exists in our community, the kind who would have stood between me and harm, even if the harm had my last name. 2 days later, the knock on my door was soft, almost apologetic. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing in the hallway, umbrella dripping from Portland rain, eyes swollen. Old muscle memory tugged at my hand on the lock. I opened the door but blocked the threshold. "Rain," she whispered. "We're going to lose the house. The second mortgage, Your father's bills. Her hand floated toward mine, then stopped when mine stayed at my side. If it were me, I asked quietly, broke, desperate, jobless, would you take me in? The question hung suspended like breath in cold air. Her mouth open-closed. Silence answered what truth would not. I nodded. I'm sorry, I said, and gently closed the door. My hand trembled on the deadbolt, then stilled. The next day, an email arrived with the subject line, Family Dinner Bellini's, Sunday 6 p.m. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe because I wanted to hear what they would say when faced with their own outline, or because I needed to hear my own voice in a booth where I'd sat invisible for years. I brought Melissa. She slid next to me like an anchor. My parents, Harper and Cody, were already seated, faces composed into a tableau of concern. We need to put this misunderstanding behind us, Cody said, leading with the family's favorite word. I laid a manila folder on the table. May I speak? The question landed like a plate on the table. No one moved. I passed out copies of my spreadsheet, 10 years of transfers, highlighted, totaling $37,842. I placed a timeline labeled with trips and holidays, the canceled plans and exclusions highlighted in yellow. I slid a photograph across the table of the shrink-wrapped jewelry kit. This is what got called too expensive at $35, I said. I bought it last year. I kept it sealed so I wouldn't forget to open my eyes. Dad slammed his palm against the table silverware, jumping. We've done everything for you, he said, voice rising. You've never appreciated our sacrifices. I met his eyes. Name 3 things you've done for me that you didn't do for Harper or Cody, I said. Just 3. The kitchen clattered in the sudden quiet. No one answered. The silence grew teeth. If there's going to be any relationship, I continued calmly, here are my terms. I placed one more sheet on the table. Family therapy, 6 sessions minimum before I attend anything. Complete financial independence, no more loans or handouts either way. A public acknowledgement and a genuine apology. And time. Mom's hand hovered, then fell. Dad looked at the paper like it was written in a language he refused to learn. You can't dictate terms to your family, he said, but without conviction. I'm not dictating, I said. I'm protecting myself. Melissa stood when I did. Take your time, I said. You know my number. Outside the restaurant, the air tasted like rain and relief. Boundaries made space, and space made room for a life. The apartment I'd once kept bland and polite bloomed into color. I painted the walls a coral my mother called too loud when I was 19. Under October light, it looked like a sunrise I could live inside. I framed my promotion letter and hung it where I could see it from my desk. It hadn't fallen from the sky, it came, because evenings were mine again, because I wasn't sprinting to solve crises I hadn't created, because I could pour the attention I'd been giving away into work I believed in. I built an emergency fund with automatic deposits that pinged my phone every other Friday like tiny private fireworks. When those pings arrived, I noticed my shoulders dropped as if someone I couldn't see had placed a warm hand between my shoulder blades. Barcelona became not a flight, but a vow. I learned to say, un café en ballet, and watched videos of Gaudi's arches rising like prayer. I booked a food tour and put my passport in a bright blue case I wouldn't lose in a coat pocket. On my last Thursday before departure, I sat across from Dr. Warren and told her about the dinner at Bellini's. She listened with the attention that doubled as permission. How did it feel to ask for what you needed? Like I touched the floor after years of treading water, I said. She smiled. That's nervous system work, not just narrative work. For Black women, the world frequently extracts, then tells you you're ungrateful for noticing. You named the extraction and replaced it with terms. That's a radical act. I let the words find a home under my breastbone. Quietly, I added, It also feels like grief. Of course, she said. Every boundary contains a funeral for who you had to be. The family responded as expected, and then surprisingly not. At first anger, then silence. Then 2 weeks after Bellini's a text from Harper. Read your terms. I'll go to therapy with Mom. No apologies yet, but the ground had tilted. A week later, a text from Mom, short as a breath, I'm ready to listen. Dad remained a weather system locked in a stall, storm sunstorm again. Cody hit reply with a fire hose of words, then went quiet when nobody absorbed them. I let their rhythms be theirs. My job wasn't to manage their weather anymore. On the plane to Spain, I stared at the clouds and realized I wasn't anxious about who was texting me or what I was supposed to be doing. The phone stayed in airplane mode like a boundary with a formal title. In Barcelona, I stood under the vaults of the Sagrada Familia and cried the kind of tears you don't hide because nobody here knows your name. The ceiling looked like a forest reaching for God. I traced light with my eyes and thought about the bones of a family story that could hold weight without breaking the people inside it. On a side street, I bought a silver pendant I'd admired for years, but deemed too extravagant. I asked the saleswoman to clip it around my throat right then. This is not revenge, Dr. Warren's voice said from memory. This is reclamation. I walked out into the sun and believed her. Back home, I rotated my phone number among the few who had earned it. Melissa James, my boss, Dr. Warren. On Tuesday nights, I started volunteering at a youth center on the east side, where Black teens showed up with stories that rang a bell I recognized without needing details. A quiet 19-year-old named Ashley brought in a toy her parents had promised and never bought. I bought it myself, she said, almost defiant, almost ashamed. Now I don't know what to do with it. Open it, I said, or keep it sealed. Either way, make the choice because it's yours. She didn't smile exactly, but something relaxed around her eyes. Thanksgiving arrived like a marker of a world reordered. I hosted in my new apartment with its coral walls and a table I bought with my own money. Melissa arrived with a sweet potato casserole that would make an ancestor shout. James and his partner Daniel brought wine. My neighbor Mrs. Winters, widowed last spring, came carrying store-bought rolls and an apology I interrupted with a hug. Dr. Warren, who insisted I call her Eleanor outside sessions, slipped out of her coat and tied on an apron without asking. People came who chose to be here, who saw me without extracting from me. Before we ate, I lifted my glass. To chosen family, I said, for showing me what family can be. We ate and talked, and nobody raised their voice. Nobody asked for money. Nobody told me I was overreacting. Late that night, while Eleanor and I loaded the dishwasher, she said 42 sessions. I laughed. Who's counting you? She said softly, and it shows. She added, your mother told me in our session this week that she misses you. I blinked. She started therapy 4 months ago. Harper sometimes joins. Your father's holding out. Cody is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I nodded. Entitlement is an old addiction. Recovery is a family disease when the family wants it. The doorbell rang, and James appeared holding an envelope. Mail carrier said it needed a signature. The cream-colored paper smelled like my mother's perfume. Inside, an invitation to their 40th anniversary celebration with a note in her handwriting. We would love to have you, but we understand if you prefer not to. Please let us know what works for you. We miss you. No guilt, no script. For the first time, an invitation that recognized I lived in my own house now. Progress, Eleanor said. I didn't answer right away. I set the envelope on the counter next to a glass bowl of oranges and thought about how love can be set down without being thrown away. Later, when the house was empty and quiet sung in the corners, I went to the bookshelf and took down the sealed jewelry kit. I slit the plastic and let turquoise beads spill into a dish like water. I strung them into a necklace that wasn't perfect and didn't have to be. It sat on my collarbone with the weight of a small crown. The anniversary party happened a month later in a banquet hall with chandeliers that tried too hard. I drove there alone with my pendant against my throat, the turquoise necklace layered with it like a reminder and a promise. I parked, texted Melissa a photo of my shoes for courage, and walked in. The room buzzed. Aunties in jewel tones, uncles with the same jokes, cousins at the dessert table. The music was Luther and Mary J., the kind of soundtrack Black families know how to survive and celebrate to at once. My mother saw me in the doorway and froze like a deer hearing old footsteps. Then she came toward me, hands, empty eyes, wet movements small. "Thank you for coming," she said. No performative sobs, no audience gathering. "I'm here," I said. We stood close enough to smell face powder and nerves. "I'm sorry," she said, voice shaking. For the ways I... The sentence could have tried to justify. It didn't. She took a breath. "I chose convenience. I chose appearances. I broke your trust and told myself you were strong enough to carry it." That wasn't love. A silence opened around us. I felt the room tilt in the way rooms tilt when truth is spoken in a family that has exchanged truth for politeness for too long. I nodded. Forgiveness didn't flood me. But a door unlocked inside that had been shut so long, I forgot its shape. Dad approached like a man walking into a storm he can't predict. "You look nice," he said to the air near my shoulder. "Thank you," I said. He cleared his throat. "Your mother's been taking this therapy thing?" "I know," I said. He ran a hand over his jaw. "I'm not good at saying things." "I know," I said. He swallowed. "I'm trying." He held out his hand. I looked at it, then at his face, and shook it. It wasn't warmth. It was a beginning. Harper came with a fragile smile that didn't quite hold. "The kids miss you," she said. "I know," I said. "I miss them too." She started to say, "Can you then?" Shut her mouth and looked at the floor. "I booked childcare before I came," she said. "It was expensive." I waited. She lifted her eyes. "I'm sorry, Rain. For what I asked, not unkindly. For standing on the wrong side of you. For thinking you can handle it was a compliment. For letting Mom cast you as independent so I could continue being cared for." Her voice cracked. "I'm working on it with Dr. Warren. With myself." I put a hand on her shoulder and squeezed once. "Thank you," I said. Cody hovered at the edge of all this. He looked thinner, angrier, then tired. "I lost the car last month," he blurted, as if confessing a sin and asking for penance in the same breath. "Repo?" Mom said. He shifted. "I got a job at the warehouse." I nodded. "How does it feel hard?" he said. He tried a grin. It wilted. "I keep wanting to text you." "I know," I said. "Text me something that isn't a bill." He laughed once short and sharp. "Okay." He didn't apologize. But later when I left, I found a folded note in my coat pocket in his handwriting. "I'm sorry I made you my plan. I want to be my own plan." I didn't know Cody knew how to say that. Maybe he didn't until now. We took the mandatory reunion photos the big family group shot in, which I no longer hid in the back row. The one with the cake. The one where Mom rested her head on Dad's shoulder like prom night. The one where Harper and I leaned our foreheads together and made a quiet vow neither of us needed to speak aloud. When the DJ called for couples to slow dance, I stayed seated and watched. I didn't feel excluded. I felt like a person watching a ritual she understood for the first time. I slipped out early, hugged a few aunties, endured an uncle's joke, and walked back into Portland night air that didn't demand anything of me. In the months that followed, nothing was tidy. There were therapy sessions that opened old doors I wanted to keep closed. Apologies that came sideways, arguments that caught us slipping into roles like old coats we no longer fit. There were backslides, Mom manufacturing a crisis to test if I would run me feeling my feet twitching toward the car before remembering I had shoes from a different life to stay put in. There were moments of unexpected sweetness, Dad texting a picture of a recipe he made and asking if he'd added too much cayenne. Harper sending a screenshot of a childcare bill paid with her own credit card and a string of cussing emojis that made me snort laugh at my desk. Cody calling from the warehouse on his break to tell me about a raise that made him sound taller. There were boundaries that held like bridges and a few that needed reinforcement. There was money that stayed where I put it. There was a passport stamped. There were Sunday mornings when I woke up before the sun made coffee and sat under my coral wall, the light turning it soft as the inside of a shell, thinking about the girl who believed love could be earned with good behavior, and the woman who knows love is a choice you can hold out on open palms and never beg for again. On a Tuesday evening volunteer night at the youth center, I printed a schedule for our new boundary workshop and found a post-it stuck to my monitor in Melissa's handwriting, "Proud of you, Rain. Don't forget to eat." She will always bring food into any crisis, even if the crisis is my tendency to forget lunch. At the center, Ashley, quieter than ever, brought the toy she'd kept sealed. "I decided to open it," she said, sudden smile peeking like sunlight. "It's loud and annoying, so I donated it. But I kept the batteries." I grinned. A perfect choice. On my way out, a mother stopped me in the hallway to say her daughter had started using my phrase at home. "I'm unavailable," the girl now said when she needed space. The mother looked skeptical. I looked delighted. Language is a map. Sometimes the map gets you out of the woods. One night in the early spring, I sat at my kitchen table and opened a blank document to write the numbers that had shaped and misshaped my life. I wrote amount given $37,842. Amount reclaimed, measurable in quiet and sleep in mornings that belonged to me. I wrote, I used to think being the strong black daughter meant doing more with less and smiling while doing it. Now, I think it means telling the truth and letting the roof leak where it leaks until the people who put the holes there learn to fix them. I wrote, love without boundaries is hunger dressed up in church clothes. I closed the laptop and lifted my turquoise necklace to the light. It wasn't perfect. It was mine. When my phone buzzed, Mom calling, I answered. "I found a group," she said, "for parents who played favorites. The leader is a black woman. I never thought I'd admit that." "Thank you for telling me," I said. She cleared her throat. "Are you free for coffee Saturday somewhere public?" The old me would have rearranged my life to say yes. The new me looked at my calendar. "I'm volunteering until noon," I said. 1 o'clock at Barista on 23rd, that works, she said. I'm grateful, she added, and I believed her. When I hung up, I texted Melissa coffee with Mom Saturday at 1. Send a prayer and a meme. She texted back a gif of someone rolling their shoulders before a boxing match and then a heart. I laughed alone in my kitchen and realized I didn't feel dread. I felt steady. That is the miracle boundaries offer, not immunity from harm, but the strength to remain yourself in the presence of it, and the clarity to walk away if it comes dressed as family. If you're listening and something in you recognizes the pattern, the unreturned favor, you'll understand the way the group photo keeps you off to the side. This is me saying, you are not overreacting. You are not dramatic. You are not selfish for keeping what you earn. You do not owe anyone your exhaustion. You can say no and still be a loving person. You can build a life that is more than a rescue mission. You can ask for therapy and apology and time and mean all three. You can walk out without slamming a door, and when they call you back with the old script, you can set the phone face down and open a window instead. One last thing I learned from a cathedral that may not be finished in my lifetime: unfinished does not mean unworthy. The work of rebuilding the architecture of a family or your heart takes longer than anyone tells you. But when the light finds its way through the new arches, it will be worth every beam and brace. If this story met you where you needed it, take a breath and choose yourself once, then again tomorrow. That's how daylight happens. If this resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe so more people can find stories that help them set healthy boundaries. Drop a comment with one small boundary you're committing to this week. I'll be reading and cheering you on. End.